Tonight on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozeman St. John host the incredible new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, tonight on NBC.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Recruiting Book Club. I'm Carmen Hudson, and I wrote a book about recruiting last year and discovered that there are many other recruiters who have put their thoughts to paper and are happy to share what they know about recruiting. I'm excited to share these conversations with you. I've talked with TA leaders and TA professionals who've written books about what's happening in our profession. So why don't you buckle up as we hear from the best in the business. Welcome to the Recruiting Book Club. This week, we have Kevin Grossman. I've known Kevin I was actually trying to remember when and how we first met, and I just couldn't come up with a thing. I have no idea. It feels like I've known you almost all the time that I've been recruiting.
It was at a conference somewhere at some point.
Pretty
I'm
sure.
sure that was one of the first places a long, long time ago.
I am pretty sure.
It could have been an ERE conference,
Could
actually.
have been an ERE. It's most likely an ERE conference, but that would have been way back in the 70s or 60s.
I don't think they went to go that far back, but it could have been. Right?
Could have
Maybe sometimes it feels that way, Carmen.
It feels that
right?
way.
Right?
Exactly. But I'm very excited because Kevin has written the book on Kevin and actually a co-writer. I want to hear a little bit about your co-writer as well.
Yes.
But they have written the book on the candidate experience. And Kevin is probably the premier voice in this space. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. Before we dive in, I've got tons of questions here for you.
Yeah.
And we'll probably detour into conversations about this or that.
Sure.
I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about your history and how you came to owning this space. And tell me a little bit about what you're doing now, because recently, 2 years
Been
ago?
a lot of change. Well, a couple of changes in the past couple of years. Yeah. So sure, I'll boil it all down, and it might take about 45 minutes.
Go
but
for it.
it's
for
not.
it. I'll
It won't
set
take
her
that
up.
long. It won't take that long. So I came into the HR and recruiting space on the tech side, and a big chunk of my tenure was on HR and recruiting technology side. So in the end of '99, there was a startup in Santa Cruz where I live called, I don't know if you remember this, tapestry.net.
Vaguely.
Okay. So we had communities of candidates. We had developers.net. We had IT, InfoNet. We had AsianNet, which were bilingual Japanese professionals, which is, by the way, Dale Bowen was the founder and CEO.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he started this, was like these communities of candidates that he would then, in a big binders, then help kind of identify them for companies to then match them to. Anyway, so we had our own secret sauce matching algorithm at the time. We were touting AI, which was super early in the space.
Very early.
In 2000 to be touting artificial intelligence, but especially as it applies to recruiting tech today. But that's what we did. And so for at least the .com part of the heyday that I was part of this startup, that's when I just fell in love with the space. Because I did some ad hoc recruiting. I worked with companies. I was doing some sourcing. I mean, we were using our tech, but there was a lot of human manipulation too, of helping to shortlist and review candidates and do screening calls. And it was just, I just loved it, of helping companies fill their positions. So that's kind of how I got into the space. But and then a big chunk of that time, and then you may remember HR Marketer.
I do remember HR Marketer, which is still around.
Yeah. Well, it kind of went it's not around anymore, actually. It was around when they segued into kind of the social influencer space.
Okay.
And then that went to HR.com.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's what I'm thinking of, right?
Yeah, but we worked with all the vendors, right? So we were kind of an extension of their marketing team, and it was software services that we did for vendors. So I worked with a lot of the folks then. Did that for a long time, worked at PeopleFluent. So again, primarily on the tech side. Did some experimentation and failed. You know what I mean? Hey, we all have those. So,
Did I tell you about my startup?
I know. I remember, by the way. Was it tweet my job,
Tweet a
right?
job,
Tweet
not
a job.
not the other one.
Sorry. Tweet a job. Oh, let's get that clarified. Tweet a job. I do remember. And I think that's probably how I first met you, by the way.
That may be it. That may be it.
I think that was the context. Anyway, so long story short, way back when, then I worked for PeopleFluent and I was director of product marketing for their recruiting products. And they had two. One was Legacy People Click.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was from hire.com, and it was part of the talent management suite. Anyway, so at that time is when I really got to know this. So this is like 2013. I got to know Jerry, Ed, 2012, actually. Jerry, Ed, and Elaine, who had just founded Talent Board.
Jerry Crispin,
Ed Newman, and Elaine Orler.
There we go.
The trilogy.
Right.
And they then started to get volunteers to kind of help do the survey analysis and write up white papers that were then combined into a research report.
Yes.
Mr. Burnett was a part of it. Matt Charney was part of it. And a ton of people were part of it early on.
I wrote one for one.
Did you write one of them?
I think I did.
Okay. Yeah. So it was very volunteer driven, very labor of love. But then a few years later, I remember Elaine approached me and said, listen, this thing might have more legs than we thought. You know, would you be interested in coming on board and helping out? And Elaine was really, she did the bulk of the work for Talent Board. And this is not disparaging Jerry or Ed at all, because they were very valuable in their input on it. But Elaine, she owned it.
Okay.
And so she recruited me on, and then the rest is history at that point. I mean, so for over 10 years, it was running it as Talent Board and the Candies, as we affectionately know it, the Candidate Experience Awards. And then we ran in, to turbulence post-COVID, and started to have conversations with David Manister at ERE, and then we decided to kind of join forces. And I was, at the time, it was the best thing for me and my team, and it worked until. But the conference business is tough, as you and I were talking offline, and I wish them nothing but the best of luck. But our partner for 9 years had been Surveil. They are the technology. They're the survey candidate experience platform that runs the Candies as beyond and their enterprise products, etc. So we had talked about that for years. The timing was never right, and now it is. So now the Candies still exist. We still benchmark candidate experience. We're still doing it right now. At least through August is the collection period for this year's data. Companies are still participating, even though hiring, has slowed. And we're now part of Surveil. So that's kind of the history in a nutshell.
Love it. Love it. Well, I'm gonna dive in. I've got a list here. I've got a couple dozen questions. I don't think we'll get to all of
Dear
them.
God, I didn't realize there was going to be a test, Carmen.
Yeah, this is a 2-hour interview.
Come on. Yikes.
I'm gonna get as much out of you as I can.
Let's do it.
Because this is a topic that has always captivated me.
Sure.
And I know that there are many employers that reap the rewards of participating in the Candies. But I think you're writing a book to actually just put some parameters around. Here's what you need to be thinking about as you're thinking about candidate experience is just great. So my first question for you is, how is it writing a book? What's your experience? What has it been? And do you have advice for others? Part of the reason I'm doing this podcast is to not only celebrate the content, but encourage other people to put their thoughts out in a more permanent way.
So I've been writing in the space for a long time. I mean, I'm a reformed influencer and blogger. I know that just sounds so silly when you say it out loud like that. But I mean, I had been writing in the
I
space.
refuse to use the I word. I just can't.
I know, and but I have to admit it because I did embrace it and I enjoyed it and it was
Yes.
fun.
Yes.
I mean, I wanted eventually more than that I word. But the thing is, I've been writing for a long time. So before I wrote this, just a quick aside, is I did get approached by another publisher, got back in 2011, 12, asking me to write a book. So I wrote a book called Tech Job Hunt Handbook. The 10 people who read it mostly enjoyed it.
I
And
might have been among one of those people.
mostly enjoyed
I
it.
have to
Well,
go
and
back and look for it.
it was a fun exercise, and it was more written for candidates.
Yes.
And it was based on a lot of stuff at the time that I was running, and it was right when I started to get involved in the candies too. But fast forward to this, so my co-author on this candidate experience book. Well, first, just the whole point of writing. As I told you before we started this, you don't do it for the money, but you do it for it.
If
But
so, I'm still waiting for that.
I know it's just not. That's not a thing. But you do it for the visibility. You do it for branding. You do it for marketing. You do it to
That's it.
share things that you think are important to your industry, to your peers. And so Adela Skolderman, who is my co-author for this, pre-COVID, she started doing some contract work with talent work because at the time we were starting to do deeper dives with companies like candidate experience audits,
Right.
and which is something I would love to get back to someday. And we really started to work. We were working well together and really, really understanding better working with companies and how to help them improve their recruiting process through that lens. And then COVID hit and all that went away. Well, a good chunk of it went away, but what we started to talk about, just kind of like, we should write a book. We should write a book. And so, I was approached by Kogan Page, who they do a lot of business books. They do a lot of HR and recruiting business books, and approached by them. And then Adela and I put together a proposal. And because one thing I always wanted to do is I always wanted to, besides the research reports we release every year, which we do, and have best practices and everything we learn from the data and the research, but I wanted to give it a broader framework.
Right.
And really lace it with case study examples that we do get every year. But I also wanted, again, I always joke that I've always played HR and recruiting on TV because I've done it, but but I haven't been as the moniker of TA or HR. I love the space I've been in. I work closer with companies than I ever could have imagined today.
Right.
But I wanted a practitioner's view.
Yeah.
And Adela worked at West Monroe, is actually where we first met, for many years. And then she worked and I think she still is at Edwards Life Sciences right now as a TA manager.
Love it.
And so we put this together with the fact that, okay, we're going to put a broader framework around the Candy research and what we learn every year. And also the practitioner perspective.
That's it.
The reality of this is what we do face. So she really helped to bring that.
That's great.
And so that combined, we kind of divided and conquered and wrote, almost 50-50 actually, the way the book is designed and broken up. And it came together and Kogan Page liked it. And then we put it out there. But I can get on my soapbox and talk about candidate experience till I'm blue in the face and pass out. But I also love talking shop with actual practitioners who understand the realities of how candidate experience impacts their businesses, but also the constraints that they face.
Constraints of getting work done or making situations work out.
Exactly. So that's how the book came together. And we, again, being a writer, I love to write, and no AI was harmed in the making of this book. This was all us, and I can tell you that I've heard this quote before. It's not my quote, but behind every good writer is an amazing editor.
That's it. That's
And
it.
that's the one thing that I learned both times with these book projects is the editing team really helped us clarify what we were trying to say.
That's it.
Yeah.
I ended up working with several groups of editors.
Okay.
I went through a first pass,
That's nice.
and I took it through a second pass, and then I even had someone else read it just to make sure that I was expressing the things that I thought that I was expressing. So
Yep.
very
Yeah,
cool.
Kogan Page had a team of the editors doing that, and then there were some more Adela too for the practitioner side. She checked into former colleagues and teammates
Yep.
on certain parts just to make sure, like, does this resonate with you?
That's it. That's it.
So yeah, that's how that all came together.
Mine started out as sort of a tell-all. I'm gonna expose all the things and all the
An
crazy
expose.
Yeah, and that quickly that quickly dried up. So no, let's take. I
Sure.
want to start. I'm going to start kind of big, and then I'll go into the details.
Sure.
But with the rise of the internet, sort of at the rise of
Yeah.
your career, I think we're
Yeah.
probably similarly aligned.
Absolutely.
And then this huge rise in candidate volume, because when I started in this business in 97, 98, we get resumes mailed to us, a few over the fax machine, and there was never the volume that suddenly 2 years later we were seeing. And I think that's when this became a problem to solve, right?
It did. It became,
did.
and it's still a problem to
And it's
solve.
still and we're still and
Yeah.
it's still shaping and shifting to become a bigger problem.
Still very much so.
So I'm just wondering, did we react quickly enough? We're at another phase where I see candidate volume increasing. What are we to do about this? What should employers do? How do we help candidates navigate the field in a way that makes sense for everyone?
Wow, that's a nice, big, easy question. Thanks,
Mhm.
Carmen.
I just wanted to start with that one.
No, I think it's a really important question. So just to your point about resumes in the mail, applications in the mail, faxes. So when I coming into this space, so late 80s, early 90s, I went to school at San Jose State University, but I worked there for many years too. And I
Right.
worked in fundraising and alumni relations. Working in a university, very insular,
Yep.
safe environment,
Yes.
kind of. But we had email and internet though.
Mhm.
Before the internet, because we had all the UC and the state California systems were connected
Gotcha.
early on. So late 80s, early 90s, we had all these things. But yet then I jumped to the private sector, and boy, I was on fire, basically. I worked for a
That time?
I
Yeah.
worked account management for a marketing communications firm in Silicon Valley.
Oh, wow.
Wow. It's actually, here, I'll frame it like this. It was the best experience that was one of the worst that I've ever had because it taught me a lot about life. In fact, when I have stress dreams today about work, I dream about that time
Right. Wow.
today, that time. But I remember sitting in Steve Soares, I remember his name. He was kind of like the office manager and head of HR for our small firm. And I remember him when he had job listings posted and he'd get faxes, with the resumes. So to try to answer your question, it's a really tough one, right? Because one of the things that we've been proponents of for the 13 plus years that we've been doing the Candy benchmark research is to make it a simpler, easier application process.
Mhm.
And this is still post early internet and the interwebs and ATSs and letting things, the kind of being able to scale better, but just we've been doing that, and that's what's happened, right? It takes less than 15 minutes on average, or even 10 minutes for a
Right.
lot of companies to get folks in the door. But man, some of the volumes that now companies are experiencing now,
If
even
you're a
more
Fortune
so than,
500 company, if you're a Fortune 1000
I
company,
mean, it's insane.
it's insane.
And even some smaller mid-sized companies, they'll post a job, they'll get 300 applications in like a few hours.
Exactly.
Right. Now, take serial appliers out because that is part of the problem, but it's not the entire problem.
It's not the entire problem.
take them out.
But it's still a problem. It's still
It is a problem still,
Yeah.
yeah, and by the way, there's also so the one thing that I've found working with the companies that we worked with and that I've worked with over the years is that we just keep underutilizing the ATS the way we've always underutilized it,
Yes.
the way we've always under-optimized it, and it's the sheer volume and companies, even though candidates believe companies are using AI to select them out all the time now, that's not what's
It's not
happening
what is going
at
on.
all, right? They're using AI in some places, but not selection. Cue the Workday Mobley collective lawsuit, right?
Right.
But employers have to start figuring out how to use technology to help them because it's with leaner teams and the volume that they're experiencing, candidate experience has just continues to tank, unfortunately, for people at the front end,
Right. Right.
right? And they're gonna have to figure out how to use those tools again, completely in a compliant way and in a fair way as much as possible. And I think we're still in very early days
Right.
of using technology like that, but that's the only way. And I'm not even talking about ranking applicants, but being able to bucket them better. Again, having as
Well, it's been a black hole for candidates.
no. Anyway, I'm babbling about it, but I think it's a huge problem still today.
Right.
Still. So I didn't solve it for you, Carmen. I didn't solve it for you though.
Yeah, I
So,
was hoping. But maybe by the end of this, we will have
but technology is going to have to be a part of it. By the way,
technology is
we
definitely a part
have
of the
to
solution.
have to.
So, before we dive too deeply, I'd love to hear your definition of the candidate experience. I think it's expanded, and it's a big
Yes.
definition than perhaps we initially thought. But I'd love to hear your sort of, and you guys write about, I think, this expanded idea of what the
We do in the book too. It's really a 24/7 thing,
yeah
meaning that all of us, anybody who's gainfully employed or not gainfully employed, entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs, everybody's a potential candidate at any given time.
right
This whole thing about being active and passive, I understand that. We've talked about that for a long time, but candidate experience is everything that impacts my perception of a business and a brand, even if I'm not interested, even if I'm not looking for a job. All of these things may turn my head. I mean, one day I may be having a crappy day at work and then I see a job posting somewhere, or I have a friend that works at company X and I'm like, who's like trying to refer me, bring me in,
right
and I make that. I mean, so it's a 24/7 proposition because we're perpetual candidates all the time,
all the time.
all the time. And so everything that every organization does from a branding perspective, everything impacts our perception of that business, that brand, whether I would be interested in being there or not, even if I've never thought about it before. So it doesn't start when I apply, it's all the time. So and I know some people are really purists when they say,
Right.
no, candidate experience starts when I apply for a job.
No, you have the ability to impact that at any moment, and it doesn't
Everything.
end once they say yes.
And it doesn't, because you're constantly having to re-recruit to retain.
That's it. That's it. All right. So I wanted to sort of get that,
Did I check that box?
check that box. So it's a big problem. It's not an
It
easy
is.
problem. We've discovered these things. We haven't solved anything for anyone, but we've told them
Yes.
that it's big and it's not easy. So
Yeah.
early on, you talk about competitive differentiators of
Yes.
those who do this well, who really take care of their candidates. You talk about communication, expectation setting, feedback loops, being accountable and transparent, and making sure that there's the perception of fairness.
Yes.
What's the easiest part of this to fix? If my candidate experience is just trash, where should I start? Where will I have the most struggle?
So there's two things, especially today. There are two that I would start simultaneously. And because the first one is, I mean, for all candidates, there's only one thing that job candidates want. That's the job.
That's the job, right?
That's right? And those are the only happy customers at the
Right.
end for any, whether it's a Fortune 100 brand or a small company down the street. I get the offer, I accept the offer. That is a happy candidate and new hire. It's not happy for everybody else. It's
And
just
even then, you have unhappy candidates.
you can totally. In fact, I was just reading an article, like supposedly, according to this article, it was in Fortune, I think, that declined offers are up. I'm not really seeing that in our data, but I mean, I know it's a rough market for salaried management, the professional level.
Right.
Across industries. But anyway, going back to this, so there's two things. One is there's not a lot you can do at the point of application to make it a positive and fair experience. It's really hard with the volume that we
Right.
just talked about. But you can, we always tout being timely and consistent. If somebody has been reviewed and they are deemed not qualified for that role, then you tell them within 1 to 2 weeks max. Too soon is too soon. The sweet spot is like give it 2 days, maybe 3, but within 2 weeks, which is what we see most of the candy winners doing. So the companies that have above average ratings in our
Right.
research. And sometimes that's being more personable than others. Sometimes that's in offering them other jobs to potentially check out. There's a lot of different things, but there's not a lot you can do there. There's only very limited things, but get on that bandwagon.
But get on it and make sure that you're consistent.
And just do it. Because if you have a recruiting culture where we're going to disposition batches of candidates 6-12 months later or when the role is filled.
Right.
No.
This is William Tincup, and I'd like to direct you to a wonderful limited series podcast that Ryan and I recorded live at the ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit. We sat down with 20 recruiting and TA leaders from around the world to hear what today's best recruiters are doing to stay sharp, stay relevant, and stay ahead. It's called The Talent Shift. You'll love it. You'll find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Listen, like, review, share. Do you?
That you may as well not do it because candidates don't perceive that it's been
don't
done.
do it. Not when it's that late.
Yeah. I had an idea the other day. I was reading something and I thought maybe we break it up into 2 communications, because what happens is you say no, that mail goes into the junk email, or people read it but they don't read it or what have you. So you break it into 2 emails. You say, hey, you didn't get the job. And then you send another one, maybe
Sure.
3 or 4 days later, saying, hey, you didn't get the job, but here are some things that you can do, or here are some things that we liked, or whatever, or here's something that we'd like to share with you.
Yep. That's
But
right.
just so that message gets ingrained, because I think what happens is we think that we've done it, but candidates don't
No.
believe that we've done it.
No, but I do you're right, Carmen, but you know this too, that no matter what you do, no matter what, you could have the white glove concierge, best candidate experience in the world. And at the point that you tell somebody no,
Yes,
it will always skew negative.
that's it. That is true.
The difference is, did they feel it was positive and fair enough to engage you again?
Right.
And that doesn't mean just applying again. That means maybe referring still, because I'm a fan of the brand.
Right.
Maybe being a customer if it's consumer based. Maybe
100%.
just being a brand advocate, period. That's the best that you can do. So I tell employers today, you can't spend a lot of time at the point of application, because those people you're not going to do anything with them other than saying thank you, but no thank you. Then the other part of this is that those you are screening and interviewing, that's where you need to make that investment in time and consistency with your communication, with the feedback, because we've been recommending for years to give feedback to finalists.
Right.
And about job fit and qualification status as to why they weren't selected at the end. But that investment, that's the human investment from the recruiting team, from the hiring managers, which is another whole part of this equation, and the candidates themselves. That whole thing, that's where you really have got to own it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, at the front end, the majority of candidates that get screened out immediately are always going to be upset and feel that it's technology, automation, AI, you don't care about me. I mean, it sucks because for those people who feel like I had something for this job. I really did.
Right. They always feel that they would not have applied had they not.
Exactly, but I'm
Yeah.
empathetic to that too, right? Because
Yeah.
I've applied for jobs that I know is kind of a stretch, right?
Right.
I mean, but I'm like, maybe I've got something, and then I either don't hear back or I get a rejection. But it's the group that you are screening and talking to and interviewing and maybe getting trying to get to that list of offers. Though that's the investment you better damn well be making.
I think what's interesting these days, and I've seen this from candidates, I got an outreach from a recruiter on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
and then they ghosted me. The company ghosted me. And so it's obviously recruiters looking to build a pipeline of candidates. They
right.
get a pipeline and they forget all those other messages that they've sent.
That's true.
But candidates, they see that as a first interaction in which I'm a candidate for this position.
That is correct. So, but it's very clear, and the relationship is there that the more engagement I get as a job candidate, the farther I get in the process, the more positive and fair I feel it is.
Right. Right.
Right? Because that's
That's
how
it.
it
Yeah.
works. That's
Yeah.
how it works until I'm told no, and then it might skew negative still, but then the difference is, and we see it in the data all the time. But those are the two things. Get the point of application thing timely and consistent going forward. Just tell them you're not going to pursue them and move on and focus on the people that you are. And I can't tell you how many, I mean, more companies are doing this, thankfully, but I can't tell you how many times well, we want to hold on we want to hold on until we fill the position. I'm like, don't do that. Just, I understand there's always exceptions to rules, Carmen. There's going to be hard to fill positions when you only
Right. Right.
have a few candidates in the
Right.
first place. I get all that. But on average, at scale, you've got to do this and then spend your time on that, period.
But you have to do that early part, especially if you're
You
working
do. Yes.
for an external facing, consumer facing brand. It's just we have to get that right.
You do. Yes.
So I love you go through and you have a series of quick hit best practices along the different stages, and you share some of those for interviewing candidates. Do you believe that recruiters are properly trained, and do we even evaluate them on how they manage the candidate experience?
No. I mean, I didn't mean to be so definitive and dismissive about the answer, but I think no, and you know this way even better than I do. And I was just having a conversation with my friend Leah Daniels about this from JobSync too. How much training do new recruiters get on process, the internal process, on this, if it's a structured interview process? How much training do hire managers get? I mean, I know there's things that they put into place. There's guidelines. Sometimes there's tutorials, videos. There's like maybe an annual or biannual meeting of the minds to internally but I don't think that a lot of recruiters get on average a lot of training on best practices
Right.
on how to review and evaluate. I think the best recruiters learned it on the street,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I mean, I that's what I think.
And do they have they even spent the time to think about why this is important? Or recruiters have a million things that they're going to think about every single day, and candidate experience may be a very small sliver of a thought. At the end of the day, maybe.
I know the difference is when I hear TA teams talk about how they put into practice, check-in Fridays with their candidates.
Hmm.
Or whatever day it is or whatever, like whether it's weekly or biweekly or just candidates that are still in the process, they're in between interviews, they're even if you don't have any information, just check in with the candidate. When I hear that, that's a win
Right.
because that's something that candidates want, even if there's no news, I'm hearing from this person that is technically helping me
Right.
to try to find a job in this organization. And what companies big and small across industries, I think that is a really good practice to do that constant follow up, even if they're carrying a lot of recs, which can be hard.
What are your recommendations to, say, a recruiting leader who wants to get their team just a little bit better at this, what do you recommend that they do? How would you approach that?
Buy and read our books, Carmen.
And read our books all the time, of course.
Well, I know I'm kind of teasing about that. I think there are. I mean, I think that there's a lot of good standards out there around recruiting still that have been developed for a long time. That I think, and I know that there are TA leaders that do have specific trainings. They bring in recruiting toolbox, for example. They bring in career crossroads. Maybe they engage the candies. I mean, there's a variety. There's tons of boutique recruiting firms that help organizations out there, individual consultants, et cetera, that have a lot of best practices that do work. And I think that there is a level of investment that I hear from candidates. I mean, companies that are benchmarking their candidate experience with us are leaning in to improve.
Right.
So because they've made that step, I know that they're doing other things, and I do hear them that they have better training for their recruiters. So it is happening. But I think you've got to find, maybe there's something that's industry specific that's out there, like, Rogue Hire, for example.
I'm
Is
sorry.
it's
tell me-
healthcare specific.
Okay, it's health. Tell me a little bit more. It's healthcare.
So Rogue Hire is, and I know I'm actually promoting a potential competitor, but they focus solely in healthcare, and they do some benchmarking for companies, not just candidate experience, but other TA data points, all in healthcare though.
Gotcha.
Just a healthcare deep dive, and I think that makes sense. Healthcare is one of our biggest segments every year too.
Right.
But I think finding something that is maybe that's closer to your industry, that has a breadth of experience. I mean, we've been doing it for 13 years. I mean, Gartner does a lot of benchmarking
They do.
too. It ain't cheap either, but hey, I mean, but they do a lot of different TA data points. I mean, there's a lot of potential help out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the RPOs, like, CLO before Elaine left, and even before that, when she had talent function, I mean, working with implementation companies can also help, because a big part of the problem is optimizing your tech too,
Yes.
making sure that's used. So there's a lot of resources that are out there, but I think you've got to find what's the best for you and what you're trying to do.
That's it.
But you don't have to do it in a silo alone, and talk to your peers. What are they using? And
Well, that's one of the reasons I really appreciated your having written the book, because there are those firms that just don't have the dollars for that kind of
that's true.
high-end consulting.
That's
And
exactly
so
true.
giving
Yes.
those teams a way to, map out and think about the process is really helpful.
Yeah.
You talk about a little bit after you're talking about the quick hits for interviewing candidates. You also start to talk about the quick hits for interviewing internal candidates. I see that as an increasingly important field of what we do. And you say, keep recruiting to retain.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about what you mean about that, and how to make sure that we are taking the internal candidate experience seriously.
So there's a balance there too, right? Because I know the conversations I've had with CA teams is that they want to differentiate their internal candidate experience, but they also want to stay fair to all candidates. But you do want to retain those that are having an impact on your business too. And there's so many variables and reasons why employees stay or leave, and regardless of that, if employee engagement's in the basement right now, which it is, according to Gallup and many other research firms, and candidate resentment as we measure it is high. It's been high since the past couple of years. But what are you doing to differentiate that experience, and what are you doing to help retain? And when I hear that TA is more involved in that, Southwest Airlines did this. There are many others that I know that we've worked with, at least through the candies, that where TA has a little bit more of an impact and a relationship with HR and talent management, especially for bigger, mid-sized to big enterprises, because there's a priority of retention. Like, what do we do? Right. We want to keep these people. And less about fiefdoms and hiring managers not wanting to give up candidates, which can be hard because if
Right.
you've got a great team and somebody's wanting to do something else but not leave your company, are you willing to let that happen?
There's a big piece of training managers for
Yes.
that generosity of talent.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I know that's not always the case, but I think the companies that I would argue that have better success rates, and I'm just saying this anecdotally right now, of retention are those that are willing to do that crossover, that are willing to share.
Right.
If you want to keep an employee that is making a contribution and contributing to, if you break down revenue by employee, if they have that kind of an impact, then you want to keep them. But I think so it's a balance of differentiating the internal experience, and it's not a one size fits all. Like we still do sometimes too much for external, but also balancing fairness too.
Yeah.
Right. Because you may have a slate of some internal candidates for a position, and then you have like, you want to retain these folks, but you've got a super strong.
I 100% agree. I love to make sure that we are giving every single internal candidate the opportunity as it fits to interview for roles and be successful.
Right.
But you almost always want to keep your eye on what's happening in the market, the skills that maybe you don't have internally that you want to bring into your organization. So you're right; it's a balance.
Yeah.
So you've seen lots of different cool things. I'd love to hear like your one or two examples of some of the cool candidate experience things, award winners, award-winning behaviors, something that's really changed the game. I'd love to hear if you wouldn't mind sharing a couple of those examples.
Something that I don't, and I just asked what I call our greater candy community about this, that I haven't seen very much, especially for consumer-based businesses, because I've been talking about business impact for a long time, and for a consumer-based business, customers are candidates, and vice versa. That's not exactly the same thing for a B2B company,
Exactly.
right? So my joke has always been, for many years, Lockheed Martin won candies, and I'd love to get him back someday to participate. But if I'm an engineer and I'm applying for a job at Lockheed Martin and I have a crappy experience going through the recruiting process, I'm not going to not buy military equipment because I didn't get hired.
Exactly. Right.
But I'm going to tell my engineering friends that it's a crappy experience.
That's it.
And I recommend that you don't. And maybe out of the 3 engineering friends I told, one chooses not to apply. Again, just an example of how that ripple effect. But if
Right.
I'm truly a consumer-based business, so Kimberly-Clark, this is back in 2018. They had won multiple candies. I'd love for them to come back to. These are little plugs, Carmen, for the companies.
Gotcha.
Come back and benchmark. Because you also know that teams have completely churned over the past.
As per usual, but even more so. And
More so the past
what we
5
do,
years
yeah.
in particular. But anyway, Kimberly-Clark won, and they did a really cool thing where and I just wrote about this today. It's actually an article that I just published, but just to revisit it again, where they were trying to figure out a way not only to improve the candidate experience, but how is there any way to generate revenue for some of our business units? And Kimberly-Clark does a lot of products,
Yep.
a lot of our paper products, home products. So they made a series of improvements in candidate experience, again, usually relating to communication feedback, more timely consistency. But they just started offering coupons to rejected candidates, especially the high volume. And at first there was a reaction, but when they were first talking about it, because we did a workshop on site at Kimberly-Clark way back then too. And the reaction was, oh my God, you're going to get so much hate mail from candidates because not only did they not get hired, now you're giving them a coupon.
Right.
They generated a bunch of money.
Wow.
From that. Bunch of money because it was welcome, because a lot of these hourly positions that folks didn't get, they use those coupons. They use it to buy the products from the company that they were rejected from. And they generated, I don't know if they still do this or not. This was, again, highlighted then. And there's been a lot of team iteration since then at Kimberly-Clark, but it paid off. Hilton has done something similar in the past that Jerry Chrisman used to tell me about. We don't see that a lot
Right.
anymore.
Right.
What we do see. So those were game changers. I feel we do see though Northwell Health is an example, and there's been other companies that are investing in offering tips and resources to candidates, career recommendations.
I love that when I see that. When I see videos or content.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's important because that also helps to solidify a better positive brand perception
Yes.
for the candidates that may not be getting the job. But hey, this employer is willing to give me a hand, though. Like, help
Yeah.
me. Like,
And it's not an expensive or difficult endeavor.
it's
It's something
not.
that almost any company could do.
And the recruiters that the companies that are doing some of this, like Northwell Health, and there are others too, that the recruiters I've loved giving their time because they know that you're in the business and recruiting of finding people jobs, and to be able to help individuals improve their resumes, improve how they interview, because nobody likes to interview. Interviewing sucks, right? And what things I can do, all of these things and kind of resources do pay off. So that's something when companies do that and invest in that, I think that will pay dividends for them as well. But a lot of the consumer based, like, how do I make improvements and keep our customers? AT&T experimented with that too when they used to participate years ago. But a lot of that's gone away. But the helping them with career advice, and that is happening still.
That is happening, and I see as well really great examples.
So that's huge. I think that's kind of a way to kind of give back to the market of people that are looking for work as well. And I think that's a really good thing that we have found that makes a big difference. And like I already had mentioned on this call, the checking in with your candidates to give them status updates, even if it's the last one that you
That's
give
it.
them,
Yeah.
the giving feedback. Companies, the highest rated companies in our research every year, most of them are giving not to 100% of all job candidates, but to many of them across job types that get feedback. It's
Mhm.
harder to do that for high volume hiring, but providing that career workshop. So those are some things that do make a difference, giving, especially when you're doing it in your communities that you're hiring in.
Right. Right. You mentioned Elaine Orler and the new project that she's working on, and making sure that
Oh, match two.
match two, making
Yeah.
sure the candidates understand where they fall, right?
Yes.
Early on in the process.
Yeah, that's super important. Johnson and Johnson, when again had participated in the past too and won multiple Candy Awards, they developed their own kind of internal system. I'm drawing a
Mhm.
blank of what it was called, that allowed candidates to check in at every stage on,
Love it.
like,
Wow.
the log.
That's
It was a
fantastic.
login thing, but
Right.
can't remember the name of what they called it. It was a cool, fun, positive internal name, but it was really shine. It was called Shine, wasn't it? Wasn't it Shine?
Huh.
Anyway, I don't remember. I just know that it was a way for candidates to be able to themselves check in on status,
Right.
and they can communicate directly with the recruiters,
Right.
and they can. And I don't. If somebody out there who sees this that works for Johnson, if you're still doing that, let me know, because
It'd
I
be
think it's
fun to.
great that you're
Yeah.
doing it. But giving the candidates that ownership over looking into that, I think is a big deal too. And those are differentiators as well. I mean,
Yeah.
the table stakes that aren't the big things that we see but the table stakes are just timely and consistent communication.
That's it, right?
From stage to stage. I mean, that should be a no-brainer for anybody, and yet it's a struggle.
We are quickly running out of time. I don't know how we did that, but before we go, I want to talk a little bit about the whole notion of candidate rejection and helping candidates understand how and why they may have ended up where they ended up. You talk about rejecting with empathy in the book.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear just more examples of how we can do this better.
Again, it's a hard one because of candidate perception, especially when I'm told no. All I hear is no,
Right.
no matter how well you say it. And it's it's hard. We take it personally, it's a business transaction like many other kinds of business transactions, but it's a messy human one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard when we hear no, because we automatically that we're being rejected as a person. And it's just that if everybody's doing their jobs right, it's that you just didn't have the skills and experience that we need now,
Right.
or aren't willing to help develop now, because there's also the potential issue of
Right.
maybe this. But so I think with empathy just means being aware of how the others feel around you and how you respond, and again, putting yourself, use this cliche, live in the candidate's shoes. We were
Right.
all candidates.
Right. At some point.
You've had good and bad candidate experiences. I've had good and bad candidate experiences. Multiple people, anybody in TA and HR know this. And unfortunately, a lot of people who are on the market, I hear from them almost every other week of how horrific their experience has been, which is really disheartening. But I think the empathy part is, listen, I mean, this is a hard decision. We had a lot of really strong candidates. We hope that you try again. Like I said, maybe like the 2-message thing that you were talking about. Here's some other jobs. Join our talent community. Here's some resources. Come to this resource fair that we're sponsoring.
Right.
I mean, just things about how can I help this person, even though we can't give them the offer.
Right.
And they're not going to go any farther. How can I make them feel like you're still a person with potential? And I think those are just some examples, some of which we've already talked about in this call, of how you say what you say when you say it.
Yeah.
But again, just having the awareness of, I have been there too, but also being clear
And
that
you didn't get this job.
we're not going with you.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's hard. That's difficult.
it is hard, because that's the thing about being an empathetic person, is that I think it's advantageous, but we also want to be kind.
Yes.
And sometimes being overly kind it leads perception astray.
Exactly.
So don't make promises that you can't keep, but also be super clear that I see you as a human. I see you as a person. Yeah, you didn't make this cut, but here's some things I recommend that you do. And anytime those little tiny things are like, to use the metaphorical seed thing, it's like they are like planting little seeds, and they really do help to flourish inside people, knowing that. And we see it in the candidate comments. I'm bummed I didn't get the job, but Carmen was really good to me. Carmen helped me
Exactly.
through every step.
And I will consider other opportunities.
That's exactly right. And Carmen was, I mean, that's when you know you are being empathetic, but also clear and definitive.
I think being clear and definitive is really, you talk about this as well. You talk about writing job descriptions and writing our job ads. And I think we do a very poor job of that.
Still today, right?
Still today, even with AI.
And now we're using
AI to make exceptionally long job descriptions, even longer with more words and less content that is directly important to the job seeker, which is what is the job, what's required of me, how much does it pay, and help me actually make those decisions about whether or not I'm appropriate for this job. Our job descriptions don't do a great job of that.
Correct. Katrina Kibben could tell you that.
Yes.
That's all they do. That's their thing.
Love it.
But that's another thing that's disheartening, right? I think we've come a long way, but after doing this, and I know you're getting ready to wrap up, even after writing the book and all the work that we've done in the research over 13 years, I always get the question, have we moved the needle, Kevin? Have we moved the needle? And that's a tough one for me to answer, because, again, there have been companies and there are companies that lean in, that we do have companies that are candy winners, that have above average ratings, that are making a difference.
Right.
But that's like this.
Yeah.
In a world of just not a great candidate experience.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me, because I still want to keep doing this work. And I know that there are folks out there that want to do a better job, but It can still be pretty crappy, Carmen, unfortunately.
It's still not great after all these years.
Yeah,
And we're heading into, I think, an era where it can become even worse.
correct.
So that's what
Potentially, yeah.
frightens me, right? So
Yes.
we've got to get better at this. Well, I do know that if we are to get better at this, you are there to help us fight the fight.
Yes.
I really love that you've written this book, and it's Adela. Is that her?
Adela Skolderman, yes.
Yes. I think it's
Yeah.
great. I think it's a great resource. I think any recruiting leader should share it with their candidate experience team and get them working on some of the things that you share. So many examples are shared.
Yep.
So I truly appreciate your spending a little bit of time with me.
Sure.
And I truly appreciate the work that you put into this. Hopefully we can expect a part 2.
That's what I hope too. I mean, I know Adela and I are working on a pitch for part 2. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's what we hope. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much. This has been a great conversation, and there's so much more, but I definitely recommend starting with picking up and reading Candidate Experience.